I'm Janice Edwards. Coming up on Signature Silicon Valley, we are on location at the Silicon Valley Community Foundation's Innovation Conference. It's the first ever. People from all over the world are here. That's next. Join us. This show is sponsored by Edwards Unlimited, a dynamic media production company. You are here for a purpose, and Edwards Unlimited wants to let the world know. We are dedicated to crafting media that engages and inspires.
From the time that we announced this conference, I have been repeatedly asked two questions. Why is this conference necessary? And why did SVCF decide to convene it? Globalization and technology have made our world more interconnected than ever before, and this trend will only exponentially increase in the future. Unfortunately, from our perspective, the nonprofit sector is far behind in adopting proven, readily available technology to advance the issues and causes that we all care about. The nonprofit sector is also failing to ask important questions about whether technology is being used to include or exclude marginalized people within our different countries. When I use the word technology, I'm referring to both hardware, physical devices, as well as software, coding, and mobile applications. The premise of this conference is that until those of us who provide the funding to nonprofit organizations are more comfortable funding technology-oriented projects, the nonprofit sector will not be able to move forward in bringing the benefits of technology to marginalized communities or in bringing attention to technology's shortcomings. I offer this critique from the perspective of looking in the mirror at my own foundation and local nonprofit community. Even though Silicon Valley Community Foundation is based in the epicenter of the world's tech revolution, our foundation has not done nearly enough to support the adoption of technology by nonprofit organizations, nor have our local nonprofit organizations sought to be at the cutting edge of adopting this new technology. While our community foundation has supported some technology efforts in the past, such as a mobile app with Voter Latino to encourage voter registration by Latinos, and a platform called Citizenship Works that enables undocumented immigrants to determine if they are eligible for U.S. citizenship, we have not done nearly what we can do, what we should do, or what we will do.
And we are talking with President and CEO of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, Dr. Emmett Carson, at the first annual Innovation Conference. Congratulations on this. It looks like you're about halfway through as we're talking, and so far it's been an amazing success. What's been the highlight for you at this point?
Well, the real highlight for me is you have an idea and you wonder if people will come. And not only did people come from our local community, they've come from across the United States, but also from all over the world: Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia, Sweden, and even Romania.
Wow, that is incredible. And so when you had the idea, what was the goal of this conference? I know you're focusing on technology empowering communities, but how did you decide about all the different breakout sessions, what you wanted to focus upon?
Well, we started out thinking that we aren't as forward-thinking around technology as we should be as a foundation. Our nonprofits aren't necessarily, our local nonprofits aren't at the cutting edge of using technology. And we said if we, located in the epicenter of Silicon Valley, aren't using these tech tools for social good, then that's probably even magnified in other places across the country and around the world. And so we said, if we aren't the ones to do it, who is better suited than we are? And we concluded that we had both an obligation and a responsibility to our own learning and to have others learn with us. And that created this conference.
So a lot of the nonprofits are here to benefit from what people are presenting?
Well, we have some nonprofits here now, but our belief was that foundations can be gatekeepers, and if we don't have a place to learn, we aren't then receptive to ideas that we don't understand. So this conference was pitched largely at foundations and grant makers and individual philanthropists, and not so much at the nonprofit community, because we think we have to prime the pump in getting funders to understand the issues, because then they can go out and say we're receptive to those proposals.
You have done such incredible work in your 10 years. Congratulations on the anniversary.
Thank you very much.
So this marks another chapter, as you said, of really changing the conversation in the way that philanthropy is done. So after the conference, what will be the next important steps?
Well, certainly we'll have evaluations coming out of the conference. We will have time to debrief. We are going to use some of the learnings out of this to inform our new grant guidelines that will be released at the Community Foundation's regional meeting next year in 2017. And so that's the immediate goal. How do we take the learnings here and put them into our grant making strategies that we're hoping to then do for the next 7 to 8 years going forward in the areas of education and immigration and other areas that we're still exploring.
Yes, and certainly there's been a lot of focus on diversity in tech recently. Have you seen any changes, positive changes in that direction based on all of the conversations, based on corporations saying they'll be more transparent about their hiring processes?
Well, I think there have been two important movements. One, the movement to acknowledge that there's a problem. Because for many years there was no acknowledgement that there was any issue. The point of view was that tech was a meritocracy, and if you didn't see a lot of people, it meant that people weren't that good. People don't say that anymore. So that's a big breakthrough. Second is the release of data. And so when companies commit to putting out their data, they can be measured and held accountable. I think the third thing that we need to see that we haven't seen yet is to recognize that for many tech jobs, you don't need to have a STEM background in these major corporations. And in some of these other areas of work, there are ample people of color. So HR or marketing and communications, advertising, legal work. There are a lot of other areas within a corporation, sales, that don't require to have a STEM or a STEAM background. And so we can see movement there very quickly, even as these companies work to improve the pipeline over time. That's the third area that we need to see progress on.
You're clearly a man on a mission. What's your hope for 5 years from now that you will see that has been improved in the Valley because of the work that you've done?
Well, I'd like to see...
or I should say not just the Valley, worldwide.
Well, but certainly in the Valley, which is our primary focus, we like to see in every community a home for every job that exists in that community. You can't have a community with homes that are $1 million plus without jobs that then all the jobs are going to be $1 million. So we have to have for every job a home that someone can live in at that level of pay for work. And we're a long way from that. It may take us longer than 5 years, but I would like to see movement toward that. I would like to see movement where we have a school system that is more rational and equitable. You talk about one of our presenters showed a classroom in 1918, and then they showed a classroom in 2016, and guess what? They looked exactly the same.
Oh, you're kidding.
The classroom looked exactly, the desks were a little shaped differently, but they were exactly, it's exactly the same. And so that's the kind of transformation that we have to have in our school systems. And that's not just here in Silicon Valley, but we ought to be leading in doing that. And right now we have some 40% of our kids can't read at the 3rd grade level. It goes up to 60% for kids of color. That's intolerable in Silicon Valley. Technology can be a part of that solution.
Yes. Speaking of solutions, the 49ers, based on Colin Kaepernick's kneel, have donated money, $500,000, to the Community Foundation for working with organizations that promote racial equality. What steps are being taken, and what's the long-term plan regarding that?
Well, short term, we're very pleased to be recipients of that grant and doing that work. We're talking with the team and with community partners about a framework of some things that we can do. We're very close to having some announcements about the direction we hope to take, and that it will partner with existing efforts. I think it's been very important to us and very important to the team that we aren't trying to create something new. They're very productive efforts that are going on in particularly San Jose that provide an opportunity and a framework to build on in useful and productive ways and not compete with or supplant. And so we've been involved with people who are close to those discussions and asking them, how can we be a value added to things that are already going on and be a catalyst to taking it to a greater height rather than being in the way and an impediment. And those have been very productive conversations, and I look forward to when we can share more broadly what some of those ideas.
And we're going to be talking with your wife as well. How many years have you been married, and what's the key to your success?
Well, 21 years at this point. Thank you. The first key is I do what she asked me to do.
Happy wife, happy life.
Certainly a happy life. I hope happy wife. But also we listen and respect each other. She is quite honestly my best friend. She's the person that I want to share my first success with, and she's the person when I've had a hard day that I need her to say it'll be okay. So I think having someone who's your best friend in addition to someone you love, and she's wrapped up in one, and her beauty is only exceeded by her brains.
Wow. Well, that is a wonderful testament. I look forward to talking with her and many continued years of happy marriage and continued success with all that you're doing with the foundation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
VR is really, really exciting to us as people who think about education and technology, because it allows us to scale an aspect of learning that technology and sort of the educational establishment as a whole has really struggled to scale. And that's what I'll call here like experiential learning, like learning by doing, by seeing something for yourself, by like actively constructing knowledge along with your peers. And like, look at all the good things happening in this classroom, right? Kids are actively engaged. There's smoke. They're working independently. They're working together. This teacher's having fun. Everyone's having fun. This is a great day in school. But days like this are actually quite rare. If you go into schools and you see what's happening, actually relatively little learning is happening by doing. And that's not to like say schools are failing. In lots of ways, that's like a failure of all of us. It's a failure of all the system. It's a failure of the technology. But we've known about this for a long time. Like our great pedagogical thinkers like John Dewey have been saying this over 100 years ago. And so here's one way to think about it. If there's any doubt that like technology's changed everything, here is St. Peter's Square in the Vatican in 2005 as Pope John Paul was being laid to rest. And here is that same square in 2013 when Pope Francis was being announced. Does anybody like notice a difference? Something has changed? That's 8 years. That's incredible. But classrooms haven't really changed that much. Here's a classroom in 1964. And here's a classroom 50 years later. They look pretty similar, right? I can try to illustrate this point in a different way. How many of you remember like a test, a big test that you took in school? How many of you remember? Okay. How many of you remember all the information on that test right now? Like how many think you could do really well on that test if you took it again right now? Not too many, I bet, right? How many of you remember a trip you've taken to like an interesting place, a country, a museum? About the same number. How many of you think you could actually like tell me important details about that trip or about that experience? A lot more of you, right? So obviously I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but imagine if you learned the stuff that was on that test you forgot the same way you learned about that interesting place you went.
Dr. Jackie Copeland-Carson is COO of Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County, and she's been one of the presenters here at the Innovation Conference. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Well, congratulations on this. It's such an exciting event. You were presenting regarding employment opportunities and closing that gap. So what was the focus of your presentation?
Okay, well, let me first say that at Catholic Charities, we are essentially an anti-poverty organization working on global poverty in Silicon Valley's backyard with about 40 to 54,000 people every year. And one of our major focuses is how to get disadvantaged, underserved people into career paths that pay a livable wage to address poverty. And so I moderated a session today that was looking at how to use technology to close the employment opportunity gap. The fact that we have a booming economy that's largely driven by tech, but the skills, the networks, the access are unavailable to many people living in poverty, as well to many women and communities of color.
Yes, I know one of the things that has happened since 2008 that some people who had jobs at a certain level have not been able to ever get a job that's comparable, and yet they're still in the valley. And despite all of the progress that we see, we continue to have people who are really desperately looking and at the same time not feeling a lot of hope about their future. So what you're talking about is really providing the tools and the resources to change that.
Right, and we had some fantastic presenters on the panel who are reaching into schools, homeless communities, and really trying to train people from the bottom up for the skills that tech needs most today. One of the challenges that we all face is that we know that there's been rapid fire change in technology. Yes. So you train a person for one job, but then the entire field changes. So a lot of the emphasis in our discussion today not only looked at how you train people for specific jobs, but how you train them so that they can be agile and adaptable as tech continues to increase the speed with which the entire field changes.
And as you're talking about the training, there's twofold. One, there are the actual skills, but there's also the internal resilience that has to be nurtured in that way. How do you do that? How do you handle that part of it?
Well, our panel has some interesting insights about that. And so they are some of the most successful organizations like Code 2040, Youth Radio. We had LinkedIn, and they have a huge social impact initiative, as well as an organization called Digital Divide Data. And they all said that yes, you have to train for specific tech skills, but the soft side, the people skills, the resilience, an orientation towards innovation, that everyone who wants to be successful in this economy, whether they're in tech or not, needs to figure out how to learn and have that be a lifetime orientation. And we all need to figure out how to remake ourselves for different fields or subfields, as there's so much rapid change in technology, and technology impacts all jobs. And so you can work in a field like healthcare. You need to know a lot more about technology if you're a nurse today, or even a certified nurse's assistant, than you had to know 10 years ago. So it was a really rich conversation that looked at the fact that tech isn't static, and what we train people for today could be obsolete in 3 years.
Very true. Who inspired you, and how did you choose the career path that you've taken?
There are a couple of different aspects to that. I have been very blessed to have the opportunities that I have, and had a family who came from the South, the Charleston area, had me in Philadelphia, and was very oriented towards education, but also uplifting others as one ascended the ladder of social mobility. And so I've just always had an interest in giving back, and just expanding the tent of opportunity for as many people as possible. I feel like it's a responsibility, given that I have had, even though growing up in very modest circumstances, so many opportunities that were afforded by excellent teachers, very devoted parents, my faith community, and just Philadelphians who believe that I could achieve my dreams, and I know that my mission is to provide that same opportunity to people who feel like they're locked out. And this economy is really challenging, and I think particularly challenging in the Bay Area because of the cost of living. So I do feel like the community needs to come together for our young people, and some of the conventional strategies that we use don't work to create opportunity for them. And so I'm very interested in those intergenerational conversations and how we can promote policy change that provide opportunity for all people in a rapidly changing global economy.
So important. One of the things that hasn't changed over 21 years, I was talking with Emmett about this, is the fact that you two have been married. So what would what would you consider the keys for the success that you two have enjoyed in your union?
Well, I think that for me, creating a safe space that is about supporting each other's dreams, visions, and aspirations. I am his biggest cheerleader, and he is my most vocal cheerleader. And I think that's a key piece of it, that we're on a journey where we're discovering and actualizing what we consider our missions in life. And it's just a very special kind of support, and it's a life journey, and it's been a blast.
So I'm glad we had a chance to have you as our guest. And if you'd like to contact Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County, the details are on our screen.
Van, talk about Dream Corps a little bit.
That's good. Well, first of all, I can't tell you how happy I am to be in a conversation where I don't have to talk about politics. So,
and Van has promised he won't talk about politics.
He said this is a politics-free zone. And I said I'm so happy for obvious reasons, but that said, you know, it is actually the case that governments around the world are in trouble. Politics is choppy. And it may not matter as much as we think. When I was a young person, the future was written in laws in Washington, D.C. If you're a young person today, it's very clear the future is being written in computer code here in Silicon Valley. That's where change is happening. That's where the disruption is being located. If you want to see the difference, look at a Senate subcommittee and the pace of decision-making there versus a hackathon. You can just those two, by the time they finish introducing themselves at a subcommittee, young people have solutions at a hackathon. So that's both good news and bad news. It's good news in that there's other places and other ways to make change, but it's bad news because we do not have full representation at all. You know, Washington, D.C. is much more representative. The UN is much more representative of humanity than anything happening in Silicon Valley or any of the other miniature Silicon Valleys from Austin to Boston. It is still overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male, and what that means is that the problems that get teed up to get solved are sometimes underwhelming in their import. I'm not sure why sharing photographs is so difficult, but if there's one more photo sharing app that comes out of Silicon Valley, while we're still not addressing hunger, still not addressing poverty, still not addressing racism. So there are different problems that can be solved. So at the Dream Corps, which is an organization that I help to run, we're a support center for innovative initiatives that aim to close prison doors and open doors of opportunity. That's our basic slogan. Close prison doors, open doors of opportunity.
Our first product is a medical exoskeleton that works with spinal cord injury patients. What I'm wearing is the MAX system. It's called Modular Agile Exoskeletons, and it's comprised of 3 different modules. You see here I have the Shoulder X, which is helping people overhead work, like mechanics, aviation, welders, anyone with a prolonged overhead work, sustained overhead work. I also have the Back X on, This is providing support when I go to pick up a box. We're working with different airline baggage handlers as well as logistics manufacturing companies, people who are moving boxes around all day or having pick and place operations. The back X is going to take about 30 pounds of force off your back while lifting or stooping.
We're talking with Alex Seidman from HuffPost Riot about the virtual experience you're providing here. So explain a little bit about what's happening.
Yeah, so we have about 4 of our short documentaries presented on these headsets. So you can basically, you sit down, we cue the headset set up for you, you put it on, and you can select 4 or at least one of our short documentaries. Each one's about 3 or 4 minutes long. They all have sort of a humanitarian focus to them. They're meant to sort of garner empathy and give people a real sort of further understanding of what's going on in the world, more so than just, say, a CNN report on it. You can actually, stand in a war-torn street or, stand in the aftermath of an earthquake. The immersion factor really adds to that experience a lot. So that's the idea.
Raj Jayadev is the coordinator of Silicon Valley DeBug, and he's a presenter here at the Innovation Conference. Nice to see you again. Tell me about what you're doing here today.
It's great to see you again, too. Well, I'm here just really to participate in this conversation of the role of technology and our expanding sense of community and how it could be used as a tool to democratize communities and get more inclusivity. Particularly, I'm going to be talking on a panel with some great folks about the overlap of technology and civil liberties and civil rights. So I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of a local community organization that has, one, used technology to get unheard voices to the table, to make impact and changes in the political environment, but also that are walking a very fine line of wanting to embrace technological advancements, but also are concerned about how that encroachment might destroy privacy or enable the state to do surveillance in ways that we don't feel is appropriate.
Their chief concern is the technology that police departments are employing and bringing in to their departments that oftentimes the public doesn't know about till after the fact. Until they've had the protests and they've seen something that looks like it came out of Star Wars headed their way down the street. Or they hear the story of what was used where someone was killed by police. Or in what's thought of as a more nuanced way, but I think equally as serious, is how are people being surveilled by new tools by police? Because it's not civil liberties in sort of just the philosophical discussion of civil liberties. It's civil liberties in the conversation of proven racial bias, where in a city like San Jose, which is a forward-thinking city, Latinos are arrested at twice their general demographic rate. African Americans are arrested at 5 times their general demographic rate. And then you say the source that is doing and employing that racially biased arresting practice now has a new menu of options to do it better and longer and faster. It causes a deeper divide and separation from law enforcement and the communities that they're supposed to be protecting.
Rachael Chong is founder and CEO of CatchaFire, an incredible organization. Rachel, tell me a little bit about how it all began.
Sure. So CatchaFire is the largest online skills-based volunteer platform, and it began through a couple of personal experiences. So I started off my career as an investment banker, and as a banker, once a year, the company would put all the bankers on a bus, and we'd go build a house or work in a soup kitchen, and that volunteer work I think is very important, but frankly I wanted to do more. I wanted to use my skills to give back, and so that was actually the seed of thought, was how can we create volunteer opportunities that allow business professionals and people with skills to be able to give their skills to nonprofits and social enterprises that need it. And then I later went into the nonprofit sector, and we used skills-based volunteers well to actually get the organization off the ground. So then after that, started CatchaFire.
And that's our show. I'm Janice Edwards. Thanks for putting your signature on our valley in such an incredible way. Please join us again next time. We look forward to seeing you then. This show is sponsored by Edwards Unlimited, a dynamic media production company. You are here for a purpose, and Edwards Unlimited wants to let the world know. We are dedicated to crafting media that engages and inspires.